I get a lot of questions here and on social media about the publishing process. The process has been the same for every book that I've put out. I'm on my third, but the timelines, less so. Like I said, I'm on my third book, which is called You've Got Chainmail, and it's out in August. And the timeline for this one is very accelerated to what I'm used to. For context, it took me 3 years to write and then publish my first book. I first started working on it in April of 2016, and then it came out in August of 2019. My second book, I first started working on it in February of 2020. You can guess what happened right after that. And it didn't come out until March of 2023 as a result. This book that I'm working on the other hand, has had quite a different timeline. And it sounds really accelerated. I'll tell you about it in a minute, but it's actually incredibly normal. People's first books, they get years or sometimes even decades to work on those books and to perfect them and to make them exactly the way they want them to be before querying and then publishing. It wasn't quite like that for me, but that's not what this video is about. Subsequent books, however, especially if you're on a multi-book deal or if you're putting out basically a book a year through your publisher, you have significantly less time to write your book. The schedule I'm about to share with you is tight, and it is because I work full-time. If I didn't work full-time, I think it would be quite comfortable. Because I do, and I'm doing this all in the evenings, it was a little bit of a whirlwind. So, without further ado, let's talk about the timeline, the complete traditional publishing timeline for my book, You've Got Chainmail, from inception to publication. Now, this book is not out yet, so everything from here until August 15th of 2024 is planned, but I've actually recorded this video a couple of times and then binned it because I didn't feel confident enough that we were going to be able to keep to that timeline. We are far enough along in the process now. I'm very confident telling you it is coming out. The place where I'm going to have my book launch party, I have now called them to book it. That's how confident I am about this timeline, even the stuff that is planned. So let's rewind. Let's start from the beginning. 31st of July, 2023. My birthday. I had been working with my publisher on an idea, sort of developing it. The market timing just wasn't right for that book. And so I'd sent over a couple of other ideas for books that were pretty similar to the idea I'd been working on, which were very similar to my first 2 books. So color me surprised when I get an email on my birthday saying, "Hey, do you remember that idea that you had a while back about a rom-com set at a Ren fair?" No, I never had an idea about a rom-com set at a Ren fair. What are you talking about? It turns out that what happened was I had an idea years ago talking to my publisher about writing a D&D rom-com. D&D meaning Dungeons and Dragons, which I play. And she just conflated that with Ren fairs because I guess they're both nerdy things and so they're the same. I don't know. But we did some due diligence to make sure she hadn't heard that idea from another one of her authors. And once we realized where the idea had come from, which was basically nowhere, we were like, okay, well, let's see about this idea then. So that initial email came on the 31st of July, and we very quickly over email resolved the source issue. On the 22nd of August, I had a call with my publisher, my editor, and we agreed that this was the project I was going to work on. I actually came to that call having an outline prepared because I'd been thinking about it. I'd had like 3 weeks to think about it. They came thinking that they were going to have to sell me on the idea versus the other ideas I'd been working on. So it was very nice when I rocked up and was like, oh, you don't have to sell me on this. I've already plotted the book. So 31st of July, initial idea. 22nd of August, we agree on it together. 1st of September, 2023, I start writing. I had an outline to go from, but it wasn't a super detailed outline, so I started drafting. My deadline at that stage was the 1st of January. I thought that was a good idea at the time. I was like, oh, that's fine. Christmas, I'll have some downtime. I'll be able to go into deadline mode. It'll be great. That was a terrible idea. I spent the next 4 months writing my ass off. I was exhausted by the time I was done. I didn't get to enjoy any of the Christmas festivities. I didn't get to relax. I went back to work in January feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My body just like collapsed after trying to do that in 4 months. And like I said, this schedule is not actually that tight for what a lot of career authors do. But from the 1st of September to actually the 30th of December was when I turned in my draft. It then took another 3.5 weeks for my editor and my publisher to read through it and to compile their ideas. On the 24th of January, they sent me the structural edit letter. I went up to London the next day. I had already planned to do this, to have a meeting with them so that we could brainstorm and discuss the solutions. We got on the same page on that meeting on the 25th of January, and we agreed that I was going to have about 7 weeks to work on the structural edit, which is not enough time. I did it, and that was the deadline I was worried about. That's why I've recorded this video 3 times, but I did do it. I delivered the structural edit on the 17th of March. One of these days when I am less traumatized by the situation, I will tell you everything that I changed about this book. Actually, I think I have a draft video somewhere where I'm talking about the biggest changes that I made. No, it's on TikTok. I posted it on TikTok. See, everything at that time is just a blur in my brain. I've posted it on TikTok. There is a video of me talking about the biggest changes that I made during that structural edit, so you can go watch it there. 3rd of April, so a couple weeks later, I had a call with my editor. I was absolutely bricking it because I had no idea if she was going to like the changes that I made. I knew going into that call that if she didn't like the changes I'd made, that pub date was getting pushed, and probably quite significantly. Helpfully, she loved the changes, so that was great. In fact, she said it was in good enough shape that she felt it could even be sent to advanced readers in its existing state at that time. We didn't do that because we still had a line edit and a proofread to go. Now, the line edit versus the structural edit, obviously structural edit is big structural story stuff. Line edits are line and paragraph level changes. I knew on the 17th of March when I sent in my structural edits that there was line level stuff I wanted to do, but I didn't do it before then. 1, because I didn't have time, and 2, because I didn't want to make line level changes to something that could still need big structural changes. It would be a waste of my time. So once she said, no, we are good to move to line edits, I then took the next week and a half to do a line edit myself. I got those structural edits back with a thumbs up on the 3rd of April. On the 13th of April, I delivered my self line edit. So this is bringing us up to present day. This is now going to be sent to my line editor, who is going to deliver it back to me with suggestions on the 24th of April. I will then have until I think the 5th of May to make those changes and get it back to my publisher. Line edits, it's easy stuff, especially when you're resolving someone else's line edits. The self line edit, I had to go through every single thing. I had to read through the entire thing. Someone else's line edits, my favorite part of the process. It's so quick. It's like a little game. It's like, oh, comment here, resolved. Comment here, resolved. It's like instant gratification, which writing books has no instant gratification anywhere. So the fact that there is this tiny little nugget of instant gratification, I just love it. It's the good stuff. Once I've got that back on the 5th of May, we will move into the proofread. That will only take a couple of weeks. Again, that's very easy. Once the proofread is done, then May through July will be spent on production, as well as getting copies out to advanced readers before the 15th of August, which is publication day. One other thread that I would like to add to this timeline, I'm hoping Future Sam has put a timeline here. One other thread I'd like to add is about the cover. If you have seen a couple videos ago, you will have seen the cover reveal for this book. I also inevitably put it on the screen at the beginning of this video. I think I got the first sketches in late January, early February, and then I got a full color version and then an edited full color version and then etc. etc. So there were lots of iterations of that. That cover was finalized on the 5th of April and I revealed it on the 9th of April. Love the cover. It's beautiful. It's by Margarita Abatino. I will leave a link to her Instagram in the description. While the book was available for pre-order before the cover went up, most people won't pre-order a book until the cover is up. So there's a nice little uptick in pre-orders when that happens, which is nice. By the way, in case you didn't know, pre-orders are literally the most supportive thing that you can do for an author. So that is the timeline. This felt hard. And I think part of the reason why it felt hard was because, 1, because I work full time, and 2, because it felt like we were running out of time. It felt like there was no runway because this is the shortest possible amount of time that could be allotted for production and getting copies to advanced readers and stuff like that. If there were any more things we had to do, if that got pushed at all, the pub date would really need to be pushed, which was why I was so nervous about making this video until we got to this stage. So if I want to do a book a year, and this whole process took 11 months. Does that mean that I will only ever have another month of runway? Yes and no. I can take advantage of that production time as well. So for example, my next project, I'm starting it at the beginning of May, which is kind of crazy to think about because mentally I'm still very much in You've Got Chainmail, but it's time to start thinking about the next one if I don't want to be feeling this way this time next year. And that should give me a bit more time, both on the draft and importantly on the structural edit. So what we're doing right now is just kind of getting ahead of the schedule, right? It had to be crammed this time because of when the publication is happening. But if I start now on the next project, then I should be able to get out ahead of things. And that's what's important. So is a book a year feasible when you have a full-time job? Yes, I do believe that it is. Is it hard? Of course it is. I have to give up a lot of things in order to make it work. I have an incredible partner who supports me really practically as I make this work, but it definitely is possible and it's not abnormal. Most authors aren't doing that full time. So while this timeline might seem really fast, and it certainly is fast compared to debuts that come out and how long it takes to write those, this is not actually that abnormal for a career author. And I want to be a career author. Let me know if you have any questions about that whole process. I feel like it was a whirlwind, not just living it, but saying it. So if I've missed anything or if I've used any terminology that doesn't really make sense that you've not heard of before, please let me know because I inevitably have poorly explained something. But I'm so excited to share this with you. I have worked so hard over the last few months on this, and I genuinely can't wait for you to read it. I'm so proud of it. Pre-order it, links in the description, and subscribe if you're new here. I'm going to put out more stuff about the book. I like to talk about books I'm reading, all that kind of stuff. So I'm really happy to have you here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.